120 hand cannons are my favorite weapons in the game, so today I will be ranking every single one of them in a tier list as well as giving my personal god roll for each weapon. If you like this type of video or want some PvP tips, definitely subscribe and check out the playlist at the end of the video. So first up, we have our patented dog water tier. So as always, these do not necessarily mean that these are bad weapons overall in the game. Just remember they are being ranked in relation to each other. They may be good or bad in the actual game, but just compared to the other 120 hand cannons, these are the ones that I think are in the bottom tier. So first, Dog Water 120 is the loud lullaby obtained from the moon. So this weapon actually has some crazy perks. It has slide shot, explosive payload, kill clip, or even moving target. Like, these are all excellent perks. So why is it in the bottom tier? Well, the base stats are just awful. I believe it has like 24 handling and 17 stability. So it just handles very poorly. It's extremely slow. It just feels really bad to use. But don't worry, its range is also pretty low as well. It doesn't have great range, doesn't really make up for anything. All it really has going for it are the perks. I will say the perks are very good. If you wanted to use this, you would probably want Fluted Barrel to help with the handling and the stability. And then I guess for the actual perks, you probably want Moving Target, Kill Clip, or Slide Shot, Explosive Payload. Those would probably be the two combos that I would try to get. Maybe you want like a Handling Masterwork as well. So yeah, like I said, perks are good. The stats just aren't there, so it is in the bottom tier. Next up in our bottom tier, we have the Pure Poetry. So I actually think this one is a lot better than the Loud Lullaby, pretty much because it can get Perpetual Motion and Elemental Capacitor. If you run that combo and you were on an Arc subclass, I think it could be kind of decent, I guess. Otherwise, I would not use it. There's just far better options. The base stats are slightly better than Loud Lullaby, but again, just not worth using in my opinion. My god roll would be Perpetual and ECAP, like I was saying. And then probably go as much range as you possibly can get between the barrel and the masterwork. It does also have access to Fragile Focus or something like Harmony as well. Those could be decent, but like I said, there are other hand cannons out there that can do those things better. Okay, moving on from the bottom tier to our next tier, which is the B tier. There's always one weapon where there's kind of a strange cult following for that will say one of these bottom tier weapons is like completely cracked, even though it's definitely not. And I kind of think it might be this one, but we'll see in the comments once I'm done. But next we have the Combined Action. So I originally had this a bit higher based on what I've heard. I kind of had some decent expectations for it. I heard some people like it. I've seen it used a little bit, I guess, but then I used it and no, this is not it. This thing feels awful to use. It has some pretty mid perks, really. There's not that much of a selection. It's really just outclassed by most other 120s. I think you'd probably want Zen Moment and Kill Clip, and the only reason I ranked it above the other ones is because I think this is a better use of Kill Clip than Loud Lullaby, and Kill Clip is good. It lets you 2-tap. So yeah, Zen Moment, Kill Clip, probably the god roll. I do like Zen Moment as a perk, but honestly, I really hated the sights and like the handling on the weapon. Just it did not feel good at all to me. The sights are kind of like Dire Promise, I guess. If you just loved these sights for some reason, even though they cover up the entire screen, I guess you could probably bump it up. But for me, the sights were just a no-go. I kind of asked around. The general consensus was most people do not like the sights, so I think it was pretty safe here in the bottom of B tier. So what we have next is the Something New. Now, what's unique about this is its origin trait. Dreamwork is actually very good. I'm a big fan of that. I like the True Prophecy gun model. It's not too clunky. It doesn't obscure the screen as much. The only issue with this weapon is the perks are pretty bad. I think Harmony and Multi-Kill Clip are decent for damage perks. Well-rounded isn't too bad either. I actually think Ensemble is pretty good. That's probably what I would go for in that first column. But yeah, the main theme in this B tier really is that these weapons kind of lack good perks. So that's kind of the issue with this one, but it does feel decent to shoot regardless. And I do really like the origin trait. So I am going to put it in the B tier. Okay, next up is actually one of my favorites on this list, and that is the Targeted Redaction. So this is basically a 120 version of Spare Rations with the gun model, which is also one of my favorite hand cannons. It also gets access to Keep Away, which is probably the second best perk in the game for hand cannons besides slide shot. At least that's how I would rank them in my opinion. It also can get explosive payload in that same slot. The issue though is that that first column of perks doesn't really have much going for it. I guess well-rounded is probably what you want, but I will say though, this hand cannon probably has the best origin trait in the game when it's active. When active, it gives you plus 60 handling and plus 20 stability, along with 60 reload. So you get like 140 stat points just for having the origin trait up. If you play a subclass that kind of spams abilities or has longer cooldowns so you don't always have abilities up, it can get pretty crazy to get that buff. Also, if this checkmate like game mode modifier becomes more widespread, this gun will definitely be moving up, because then that origin trait will have way more uptime, and that 60 handling especially is huge on a 120. So yeah, one of my favorites right here. I really like how it feels to shoot. I'm just gonna keep it down in this tier though, because basically that first perk slot kind of holds it back. So I will say I am going to keep it in this tier, but I do really like this one. Now in the A tier, these are all very good. If you don't like the order, that's fine. I really don't think these are that far apart from each other, even in the top tier. Like, they're all kind of very close. So if you don't really agree with the order, it's not that big of a deal. They're all very close. So first up, we have the Malediction, I believe is how you pronounce it. So you probably want to run Enlighten Action and Explosive Payload. It also has a lot of different origin trait options. I think Wildcard is probably the best and the most fun. It's not like anything crazy really in my opinion, but it can be nice sometimes with the little Telesto bolts on the ground. It's not like game breaking, but they do come in handy sometimes. Now I know someone will be like, it gets Discord and Harmony and that's unique. Like, yeah, I get that it can do that. There's always comments like that on every tier list video, but just because weapons in this game can do something unique with a certain build, it doesn't really mean that that unique thing is actually good. And that's what we're tiering in the tier list. We're tiering how strong I think the weapons are. Now it might be fun, which I'm all for. I do like those unique niche builds. They are fun and they can do cool things. That's a great part about this game. There's lots of unique things you can do, but in this tier list we're just ranking on like pure strength of the weapon. Like, we're sweating out here, so there's no room for fun in gaming. Everyone knows that, but hopefully that point makes sense. I understand a lot of the unique builds and perk combos, but yeah, it doesn't always translate to being good. So I do think Enlighten Action and Explosive Payload are what you want to rock with. I'm sure there are some scenarios where you can make the other combo work too. I think, yeah, I guess you could run that other one. I will say I think Explosive Payload is very good, so I really wouldn't swap anything for that. But Enlighten Action, you could probably run the other perk if you wanted. But yeah, basically there's no random roll for this weapon. It's set. It doesn't have any perk options, but the limited perks you do have are good. So they're not like S tier, but they're pretty good. So I think in the bottom of this A tier is pretty fair. I do like this gun. I have been using it a little bit more. If you don't have a great explosive payload 120, it's a great option. So I think that's pretty good for a lot of people, because some of these 120s are very annoying to farm. So yeah, anyway, bottom of the A tier for Malediction. Okay, the next two weapons especially I think are very close to each other. I couldn't decide where to put them, but ultimately I have the bottom dollar from Gambit up next. So this has a bajillion perks and you have to play Gambit. So it is very difficult to get. And if you're going to use this, I think you need to have a perfect 5 out of 5 god roll to kind of justify using it over some of the other options. The god roll, in my opinion, is Slide Shot and Explosive Payload. If you do not have this roll, I probably would not use this hand cannon. There's just a lot of better options, like I was saying. So I do have this here in the high A tier. If you wanted to bump it up, you probably could. If you want to take that like 1 in a million possible god roll, then yeah. But realistically, 99% of people don't have that roll. I've never actually seen anyone in a game with it personally. So that's kind of why I didn't want to just rank it solely based off of that. I guess if I were to just rank it off that god roll, I would probably bump it up. You could bump it up to the very top of this tier, or maybe into the bottom of the S tier. It's really up to you, but for me, it is going to go in the A tier, almost at the top here. Next, we have one of my favorites on this list, the True Prophecy. I have a rangefinder elemental cap one I really enjoy when I'm on an arc or a void subclass. I also have an opening shot explosive payload roll that I like as well. Overall, this weapon just feels very nice to use. It has great like a recoil pattern. I always notice that when I'm playing. I think this is just one of the better ones to shoot. I really like the model a lot, and I do really like having E-cap when I'm on an arc subclass. It's very nice to have that like near max handling stat, so that's a big plus for me. Also, it is in the kinetic slot, which ultimately was the tiebreaker for me between this and bottom dollar. It's not really an advantage, I guess, but I do like to have that energy shoddy most of the time, or sniper. For me, it's usually a sniper. I will say this is a conditional meta, so maybe that could go the other way for you if you wanted to run conditional, since that is the meta. But other than right now, I typically like to run energy shoddy or sniper, so that's why I prefer kinetic primaries. So that was ultimately the tiebreaker for me. So like I said, they're very close to each other. They're both up in this like almost S or high A. Like you could move them wherever you want to put the boundary, but yeah. Anyway, this is going to be the top of our S, or the top of our A tier, True Prophecy. So now we have our S tier. Now these are all the 120s that I use if I'm playing in a scrim, or like back when I used to play in the tourneys or face it or whatever. These are what I would use. Like I said, I've used all these weapons in that environment, and they are definitely top tier. Now, if you don't like the order, again, that's fine. They're all very good, and they're very close to each other. So moving them around could definitely make sense based on preference. So to kick off the tier, we have Round Robin. Now, the stats on this are not anything crazy. When it came out, I didn't actually think it was going to be that good, but I guess just the idea that it's, or just the fact that it's craftable, and also the gun just feels good to shoot. I kind of decided that I think Keep Away is what makes this gun so good. Like, I know it's a good perk, everyone knows it's a good perk, but I think just that accuracy cone part of Keep Away just makes this thing like feel pretty crazy. That's also why I think I like Targeted Redaction. I think Keep Away does a lot. I haven't really tested my Igneous with it too much because I didn't really get a good Keep Away roll. The main rolls I got didn't have it, so I used it a little bit and I did like it with Keep Away, but I really do think Keep Away makes a huge difference, and that's why I think the Round Robin is so good. It also gets Elemental Capacitor, which, like I said, it is so nice on Arc or even Void. I use it on Void a lot too for that stability. The other option is Kill Clip. A lot of people prefer Kill Clip. I'm not a big Kill Clip connoisseur myself, but the 2-tap is really strong. It's very good, especially if you play a lot of 6v6. It's good in 3v3 too. It's just, I prefer E-cap because it's always active. I like it on Arc or Void, like I was saying, but Kill Clip is good as well. They're both top tier on a 120. So yeah, it's really up to preference there, but I do think Keep Away is by far the best option in the other perk slot. Oh, one other thing I want to mention is the Origin trait, the little micro missile, is actually very good. Like, don't sleep on the missile. You can definitely kill people with it. It does some weird things. I've seen it hit people through walls. I kind of think like when it fires off, it's already determined to hit the target. It doesn't really matter what's in the way. Like, it's already, as far as the game is concerned, it's already going and it's already hitting them. Like, I've seen it just hit a wall and then the person just died behind the wall. Like, I don't know. This thing is actually very good. It can kill people, so don't sleep on the missile. It is actually good. It has a good Origin trait. Yeah, all of that together I think just puts it in the S tier. Like I said, I could probably bump it up. If you really like this one, you could put it over some of the next few, but to me, I do think it is I believe 4th in our S tier here. Now we have the exotic on the list, the Sturm. So with the Catalyst Sturm, it's boring, I'm not gonna lie. It's a boring gun. It looks boring. The perks are boring. It doesn't really do much unless you use Drang, but just as a 120, it's just good. The stats are just crazy. It's a stat monster with that Catalyst. It has crazy range, crazy handling. It has high stability as well. The main downside to me is it does have lower aim assist, but personally, I don't really notice any difference when I'm using it. There's never any moments where I'm like, oh, I wish I had more aim assist, or felt like my bullets weren't connecting when they should. I didn't even know it had less aim assist until I looked it up for a video like a month or two ago, because you never notice it. I never felt it. Like Sunshot, I noticed Sunshot has less aim assist sometimes, but Sturm, I never noticed it. So that is the main downside, but like I said, it doesn't really feel like much of a downside at all. But yeah, I think the main reason people sleep on this one, they don't use it, is like I said, it's just boring. It's just a plain gun. A lot of people don't want to use their exotic on that, but as far as a 120 goes, it is excellent. It is definitely in the top tier. If I had to go into like a tourney today, I mean, I'd probably get rolled anyway, but beside the point, if I was going to, I'd probably use Sturm. It's just very good. I think the next two on the list are only better than Sturm if you have the absolute god rolls. if you don't have the God rolls though. So for a lot of you out there, Sturm probably is the best 120 you have access to. So just keep that in mind. Definitely try it out. It's probably been a while. You might have to dust it off, but yeah, Sturm is definitely top tier. Next up, we have my favorite 120, and I wanted to put this at number 1. I kind of think it still could be number 1. I think I'd get flamed, but I almost did it. I almost put this one number 1, but we have Steady Hand at number 2. So I love this hand cannon. You definitely want Iron Grip for the stability bonus, as well as Slide Shot. Slide Shot is so good. Not only do you get like the crazy stability and range from sliding, you reload, and Iron Grip, the main downside is like the reload speed. Like the one I have goes down to 0. The reload speed is literally 0, but if you have Slide Shot, it doesn't even matter, because in a typical game environment, you'll be sliding. You won't really have to reload ever. You can just slide and reload. So it's very nice. And the stability, I think you can get to like 91 stability or something with Iron Grip. Iron Grip gives a bunch of stability. But yeah, you can get to like 91 stability. It just feels so good to shoot. Slide Shot is I think it might just be the best perk in the game overall, definitely on hand cannons. It's for sure up there, even if you don't think it's the best. Just that combination of those two perks is so good. I like to run it with Ophidians, so it does have a little lower handling, but Ophidians makes up for that. So yeah, it's just very good. Give this a go if you have that roll, especially. I mean, it's good without that roll, but like I said, I think some of the other ones are better if you don't have that like perfect God roll. So yeah, Steady Hand, number 2 overall. Okay, and finally we have number 1. I think we all knew it was gonna be, and that is the Igneous Hammer. It's no secret, everyone knows that this was coming, but it is another stat monster. It just came back to the loot pool recently of the time of this video, like a week ago basically. I really want to get a max handling roll with Keep Away and Moving Target. I do have one with Fragile Focus and Moving Target. It's pretty good. I think Fragile Focus is very good, but I do want to try one with Keep Away. Like I said earlier, I really like Keep Away. I think that's what makes some of these weapons like feel so good. So I'm gonna keep grinding until I get one with Keep Away and Moving Target. If you have an old one, you probably want Celerity, and I guess Rapid Hit is also another top tier roll. I want to point out, I have heard that the recoil pattern is different on the new one than the old one. I have not tested that to confirm it, but that is what I have heard. So I think the idea is you want Arrowhead on the new one to sort of, I guess that gets it to the old one. I don't know, just keep that in mind. I think there is a recoil difference, so you may prefer the old one. I know some people are actually liking the old Igneous better, but I mean, who knows? They're all very similar. I don't think it really matters. They're all going to be excellent. They're all going to be the best hand cannon in the game for 120s. So yeah, Igneous Hammer, number 1 overall. So that is my 120 tier list. Let me know what you guys think. What would you change? But I'm going to get out of here. This is already a long video. So as always, I am Awake, and I'll see you guys next time.